Michael Jackson may have been the king of pop, but behind the moonwalk, the glitter, and the glove, hid a man with some brutal opinions, especially about his peers in music. Ever wonder which legendary bands he couldn't stand, even if the whole world adored them? Because from glam rock icons to grunge gods, MJ had his reasons. And one of them, he tried to erase from history. Stay with me, because the deeper we go, the darker it gets. Michael Jackson was used to being mimicked, parodied, imitated, but he always kept his cool until one particular moment in the late 1980s flipped the switch. The band was Queen, and the friction had been simmering for years. Most fans only know the sweet surface story, that MJ and Freddie Mercury collaborated on a few demo tracks in the early 80s, including There Must Be More to Life Than This. But what they don't know is why those sessions mysteriously ended after just a few days. Michael's inner circle says it started with Freddie's sarcastic attitude. He reportedly mocked Michael's pet chimp Bubbles during a vocal session. MJ didn't laugh. He walked out. But the tension didn't end there. During a Queen concert in 1986, Mercury allegedly made a joke on stage about plastic pop stars who need monkeys for friends. The crowd laughed, but MG's team heard it loud and clear. Michael never worked with Freddie again. He had the tapes shelved, the demos buried. Even though Queen wanted to release them after Freddie's death, Jackson's estate refused for over 20 years. And when asked about Queen in private later, Michael's words were sharp. They were talented, but unkind. That matters more. This was personal. Jackson believed music should uplift, that artists had a responsibility to rise above petty cruelty. In his eyes, Queen violated that code, not musically, but morally. It's why, even in his final years, he refused to attend any tributes involving Queen. Even when he was invited to speak at Freddie Mercury's AIDS benefit, Michael declined. Some say it was because of scheduling, but others say he just couldn't fake admiration for people he no longer respected. And just when you think it ends there, the next band on this list actually tried to replace him. In 1987, Michael Jackson was untouchable. Bad had just launched. He'd broken every record imaginable. But behind the scenes, Prince and his band, The Revolution, were plotting something very different. Now, it's no secret that Michael and Prince had a complicated relationship. They were both perfectionists, both cultural giants, and both deeply competitive. But what most fans don't realize is how personal it got. When Jackson released Bad, he originally wrote it as a duet with Prince. Prince declined. Not politely, not quietly. He allegedly laughed at the track, told producers the lyrics were ridiculous. And then, according to insiders, he instructed The Revolution to perform a secret parody of the song during rehearsals. Jackson was furious. He saw it as betrayal. This wasn't just artistic rivalry anymore. This was disrespect. Years later, Michael told a close friend, "Prince wanted to be me, but he never wanted to respect me." But it went deeper than that. In 1989, Prince launched the Batman soundtrack. During the same month, Jackson was prepping Dangerous. Fans and critics alike drew comparisons. Who's the better genius? They asked. Who's the real innovator? Michael never answered publicly, but behind closed doors, he told his producers to make sure Dangerous went harder, louder, sharper. It was never about money. It was about pride. And perhaps the most brutal twist, Prince would later say in an interview that he never feared Michael musically, but pitied him. Jackson never forgave that. Years later, when asked if he admired The Revolution's legacy, MJ simply said, "I admire originality. That's all. Cold, calculated, unmistakable." But things were just warming up, because next came the one band Jackson called a disease. In the early 1990s, the music industry was shifting fast. Grunge had arrived. raw, raw, dirty, loud. And Michael Jackson? He was watching from the sidelines, horrified. To him, music had always been about melody, precision, and light. But then came Nirvana, the band that didn't care about polish, didn't care about presentation. And according to one of MJ's longtime choreographers, Michael called them a virus on art. That's right, he didn't just dislike them. He feared what they represented. He believed Nirvana was teaching young people to give up beauty, to surrender to sadness, to glorify destruction. It wasn't just a musical clash, it was philosophical. While Michael poured millions into productions like Black or White and Remember the Time, Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit video looked like a high school detention gone rogue. And it worked. Jackson was dethroned on MTV. The king of pop was losing to a man in flannel. But instead of adapting, MJ resisted. He told his label XX to never schedule his singles near grunge release dates. He refused to appear at award shows where grunge artists were nominated. And in his final interview in 2007, when asked about the new wave of rock music, Michael said, "Noise will always burn itself out. Harmony lives forever." Some say he was just out of touch. Others say he saw something the rest of us missed. Because Kurt Cobain died tragically just a few years later. And Jackson? He never mentioned Nirvana again. But just as the grunge era faded, came another group that Jackson despised for an entirely different reason. One rooted in jealousy. There was a moment in 1995 when Michael Jackson nearly cried backstage. Not because of a performance, not because of health, but because U2 won the Grammy he thought history deserved. It wasn't just any Grammy. It was Album of the Year. Michael had poured his soul into history. Songs like Earth Song and Stranger in Moscow were his attempt to remind the world he still had something to say. But U2's Poppin' Zeropa era was dominating the charts. And in MG's view, they didn't deserve it. He called their music soulless stadium chants. Harsh words from a man who played stadiums himself. But Jackson felt Bono's activism was performative, that the band used charity and politics as marketing, while he, Michael, had put his body and soul on the line for decades and received only lawsuits and media smears in return. In one of his private notes, later found in his Neverland archive, Jackson wrote, "They sing about saving the world. I tried. I got punished. That pain ran deep." He refused to attend the Grammys for years after that loss. Not because of the fans, but because of the feeling that the industry no longer valued authenticity. To Jackson, U2 represented the new wave of safe rebellion. He called it designer rebellion, and he wanted no part in it. So even when Bono later praised Jackson's artistry, Michael stayed silent. No thank you. No return compliment. Just a quiet erasure. Of all the bands Michael Jackson secretly hated, none struck a deeper, more personal nerve than the Rolling Stones. On the surface, there's no obvious feud, no headline, no explosive interview. But underneath, decades of resentment. It all started in the early 70s, when the Jackson 5 were exploding. Michael was just 11, and Motown had one rule: stay clean, stay humble, and don't get political. Meanwhile, the Rolling Stones were tearing through the US like a storm. Michael saw it with his own eyes. As a teenager, he toured the same circuits, heard stories of how Mick Jagger trashed hotel rooms and got applauded for it, while the Jackson 5 were scolded for being too loud in the hallway. One night in Detroit, MJ asked his tour manager, "Why do they get away with everything?" The answer stuck with him for life. "Because they're not us, Michael." It wasn't just about music. It was about race, perception, and privilege. Years later, when Michael went solo, the comparisons began. Is he the new Mick Jagger? Can he rock like the Stones? He didn't want to be Mick Jagger. He wanted to outgrow him. So, when the opportunity came to do a duet in 1984, State of Shock, Michael reluctantly agreed. But after just one recording session, Michael walked out. He said Jagger's voice was too sloppy, that he couldn't stay in key. But the truth ran deeper. He hated being in the same room with a man who symbolized everything he had to fight just to survive. Michael later re-recorded State of Shock with Freddie Mercury, but that version too was buried. Years later, a leaked audio clip captured MJ saying, "Mick is famous for being loud. I'd rather be known for being right." There was no press release, no feud, but no forgiveness either. To Michael, the Stones were a reminder that sometimes talent wasn't enough, that no matter how high he climbed, someone else could scream louder and be called a genius. By the mid-2000s, Michael Jackson was fighting for his reputation. The media had turned. The lawsuits piled up, and the world seemed to forget the man who once made it dance. That's when it happened. Green Day, performing at the MTV Europe Music Awards, threw a jab that Michael never forgot. It was subtle, almost dismissible. During a performance of American Idiot, Billy Joe Armstrong walked past a broken TV screen showing images of American pop icons, Madonna, Britney, and Michael Jackson's mugshot. Then came the line, "Don't want to be an American idiot." For millions watching, it was a moment of rebellion, satire. But for Michael, it was a public lynching. He had spent decades using his art to uplift, to cry for children, to speak for the unheard. And now, his legacy was being reduced to a punchline. One of MG's former bodyguards revealed that when the clip played during a news recap, Michael left the room. He didn't say a word, just shook his head. "Even kids who grew up on my music think I'm a joke now." But what truly broke him wasn't Green Day's insult, it was how no one defended him. No artist stepped forward. No one said, "Hey, that's too far." He was alone. And he never forgot. In his final creative journal, recovered from Neverland after his death, there's a note scribbled in the margins. "They hate me for changing the world. I pity their ignorance." Green Day may not have known the weight their jab carried, but for Michael, it was the final confirmation that the industry he gave his life to would never truly love him back. Michael Jackson wasn't just a performer. He was a protector of melody, of vision, of beauty. But as music evolved and grew harsher, louder, more ironic, he saw himself as a man out of time. These 6 bands weren't just rivals. To him, they were warnings, reminders of how easily art can turn to mockery, how fame can replace empathy, and how even the brightest lights can be dimmed by a world addicted to shadows. He didn't hate them out of envy. He hated them out of heartbreak, because he believed music could save the world. And maybe, just maybe, he was the last one who truly did.